All right, so now that we've read The Landlady, our next step is to complete some annotations. Annotations are just really important because it allows us to really break apart what's being said and the information that we're not really seeing yet. Okay, so for this specific story, we're focusing on the plot, we're focusing on setting, we're focusing on foreshadowing. Okay, those are the three things we're really wanting to focus on in this reading. Okay, so as I am annotating, you are also annotating on your Google Doc from Google Classroom, okay? So that I can go in and check them. Billy Weaver had traveled down from London on the slow afternoon change with the change at Swindon on the way. And by the time he got to Bath, it was about 9 o'clock in the evening, and the moon was coming up out of a clear, starry sky over the houses opposite the train station. But the air was deadly cold, and the wind was like a flat blade of ice on his cheeks. So, what I really want us to focus on here is Billy Weaver. That's our protagonist. So, let's highlight it, and we're going to highlight here, add a comment here. And remember, our protagonist is the main character. Oops. I don't know what I'm trying to spell, guys. There we go. All right, and then we also want to highlight Bath. This is a city in London. Oops. London is our setting. And I also want us to look at, it's 9 o'clock in the evening. That's a part of our setting that's kind of helping us build time. We can visualize night. And then the air was deadly cold. And the wind was like a flat blade of ice on his cheeks. So all of these here, and then let's add a comment. 9 o'clock in the evening, air was deadly cold, flat blade of ice on his cheeks. All of those are, when we hear those, we think of it being dark, cold, dull, not welcoming, right? At least I don't think. And the author isn't wanting us to be like, oh, this sounds great. He's kind of setting up the scene for it being a little bit spooky. I like that word. Let's add spooky. All right. Excuse me, he said, but there's a fairly cheap hotel not too far away from here. Try the Bell and Dragon, the porter answered, pointing down the road. They might take you in. It's about a quarter of a mile along the other side. Billy thanked him and picked up his suitcase and set up to walk the quarter mile to the Bell and Dragon. He had never been to Bath before. He didn't know anyone who lived there, but Mr. Greenslade at the head office in London had told him it was a splendid city. Find your own lodgings, he had said, and then go along and report to the branch manager as soon as you got yourself settled. Billy was 17 years old. He was wearing a new navy blue overcoat, a new brown Tribbley hat, and a new brown suit, and he was feeling fine. He walked briskly down the street. He was trying to do everything briskly these days. Briskness, he had decided, was the one common characteristic of all successful businessmen. The big shots up at the head office were absolutely fantastically brisk all of the time. They were amazing. So this is also important, but it's not super important for our specific purpose. We do want to note that Billy's 17. This just helps set the story up, right? So let's highlight this. And for a comment, we're going to add, oh, I don't want that. He is young on travel or in Bath. We can assume that he's never really traveled before. And he's young, Bath, never really traveled before, and is a little naive. Trusty. Okay, so he's just asking some random person, Hey, where do I go? Well, this was written in 1959, so it's not like we had a ton of, um, you couldn't like just go and ask. Like you couldn't search the internet, but you also could still call ahead and book a lodging, okay? All right, so I'm gonna start right here. There were no shops on the wide street that he was walking along, only a line of tall houses on each side, all of them identical. They had porches and pillars and 4 or 5 steps going up their front doors, and it was obvious that once upon a time they had been very swanky residences. But now, even in the darkness, he could see that the paint was peeling from the woodwork on their doors and windows, and that the handsome white facades were cracked and blotchy from neglect. So, this is super important for setting. Normally, if we are writing it on paper, we don't necessarily highlight the whole thing, we'll bracket it. But for our purpose, we are going to do the whole thing. So, older neighborhood. And they're mostly residential. Okay, which just means like their houses. Oh, I don't know. That's fine. Suddenly, in a downstairs window that was brilliantly illuminated by a street lamp not 6 yards away, Billy caught sight of a printed notice popped up against the glass in one of the upper panes. It said bed and breakfast. There was a vase of the yellow chrysanthemums, tall and beautiful, standing just underneath the notice. So we want to highlight that it says brilliantly illuminated because we haven't heard any description of the setting be said that way, right? Up here it's cold, deadly cold, flat blade of ice on his cheeks. Okay, it's not very welcoming. Where now all of a sudden we have this brilliant illuminated street lamp, a vase of yellow chrysanthemums, tall and beautiful. So these are welcoming signs, right? And inviting. So that's what we want to put. Welcoming, inviting. Okay. He stopped walking. He moved a bit closer. Green curtains, some sort of velvety material. So velvet is like super luxurious, okay? Or it was especially then. So again, high quality. It's a symbol, right? Okay. Were hanging on down on either side of the window. The chrysanthemums looked wonderful beside them. So again, that setting, we can visualize the chrysanthemums. He went right up and peered through the glass into the room, and the first thing he saw was a bright fire burning in the hearth. Oops, I don't want ink. And again, bright fire. It's freezing outside. This is all specific setting that Roald Dahl's giving us so that we can see a shift happening. Okay. On the carpet in front of the fire, a pretty little dachshund was curled up asleep with its nose tucked into its belly. So a dachshund is a dog. So think of like a cute little dog. And that's supposed to again paint that picture of like a very nice home. I'm going to put welcoming again because it really is. And if we look up here in this section, it's saying all about how it's older, not very welcoming. There's neglect, cracked, blotchy are some of the words that we're using to describe the setting. So this here is a huge shift, and we're meant to pay attention to that. Okay? And that's all we're going to do for the first day because I want to just see your thinking. I want to make sure that this is easy to follow along. And then if you would like, try to do this one by yourself. Okay? Do this one and then get ready for the Zoom and we will check it when you come in.